be guessed you were from the town that I love best. Talk Memphis, I wish you would. Talk Memphis, you sound so good.
Check this out. All right, before we left for the break, Dan and I were talking about 4 types of investors. Dan said that he was kind of a calculated investor. You think more, correct me if I'm wrong, but probably with every purchase or sell, you are thinking 4 and 5 steps down the road. Is that what you mean by calculated?
Yeah, and just all the downsides and make sure you're prepared for the downside, whether either mentally or financially. Yeah.
I'm more of a, cautious. What did I say? Something aggressive. I was mildly aggressive. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the way I look at it. I'm kind of a mildly aggressive investor. So the 4 types of investors we're talking about today, we have an observer, a speculator, a collector, and then just your regular investor. The observer, we talked about sidelines, sitting on the sidelines, always talking about it, always, looking at different homes and wanting to do it, but not really having that extra interior charge and motivation to push you over the edge. The next one is a collector. What's a collector, Dan?
Think baseball cards or Star Wars memorabilia, or what else do you think of when you think of that?
In this day and age, it's the Harry Potter crap.
Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Beanie Babies.
Are those still around?
I think so. I mean, people collect them.
Yeah.
Just where you're buying on emotion and the love and how great they are and how much they could be worth one day. I mean, I've got thousands sitting under my bed.
Yeah. Baseball cards.
Yeah. Baseball cards, sorry. Yeah. I don't know if they're worth anything or not. I don't, you pull up some of them like Don Mattingly or King Griffey Jr. and you're like, wow, I got something here. And
pull it up. It's worth $1.50.
Yeah. What do you do with that? I mean, how do you even make that into...
I think the only way that stuff is really, really worth anything is if you pass it down 2 or 3 different generations. Like your son's son.
Where it's 50 years old and you see these HGTV shows that...
right.
Gotcha. Yeah, just, you're buying for love, your status, some sort of gratification internally, and the financial returns are kind of an afterthought. So think about the junk shows we see on HGTV where I forgot those guys out of Nashville, they go around to people's garages and sheds. And I mean, those guys have tens of thousands, millions, hundreds of thousands. I mean, like,
who knows?
There's crazy stuff those guys have, like motorcycles and,
So when you say collector, this is the guy that's collecting houses?
No, I'm just talking about
just stuff. So that type of investor, he's just collecting stuff.
Right. He spends his money, that path of money when you're talking about assets and liabilities and all that stuff. He's buying what could be perceived as an asset, but it's more of a collection item, more towards the liability. Right. I mean, it's got to a lot of things have to align for that thing to really be worth. Some people could argue. I mean, I watched a car show with my son a lot, and there'll be a guy with I forgot, what's that Back to the Future car? DeLorean, that's in perfect shape. And the guy's like, I bought it for $175 and it's probably going to be worth $250 in the next couple of years. And to me, that's a collector thinking he's really got something.
Who knows
but he spent $175 or $175,000 to have this car that
might be worth $250 if you find the right buyer.
Might be, and it's just sitting there. You know what I mean? Like, it's not
doing anything for him.
Yeah.
Meaning it's not getting him any monthly returns, any kind of, residual income, maybe some appreciation.
Right. Maybe appreciation, but you're doing it because you love that certain topic or that certain type of product. Or
do you think this investor would overpay for a house?
Potentially. Yeah.
Sounds
because they like the house. It's more an emotional thing.
Like the area, like the house.
Area. It's pretty. It's all the things I've ever wanted for a rental house. So that's why.
Okay, so that's you just touched on something there. Always something I wanted in a rental house.
Right.
So that investor might go out there and think in his mind, without doing a ton of research, maybe, and they'll go and overpay for something because they think that's what you're supposed to have as a rental property.
Correct.
I think older people with children do that are just now hearing about it.
Yeah.
One of our employees' parents is thinking about getting one. I think they do that. I think that's their mindset of, hey, this is kind of what you're supposed to buy, $150,000 home, because they live in a nicer home. So it's like, okay, this is what you're supposed to buy. Whereas that's not the best return.
Right. That's right.
So those are collectors. So we've got observer, a collector. Dan, what's the next one?
Speculator.
High risk, high return.
Yep.
Let's talk about the speculator. They're not afraid to jump into it. They're not afraid to sign on the dotted
action
line.
is not in there, not a problem. Mm-hmm. They'll sign tomorrow, sign this afternoon, but they're high rollers, it's
and you don't mean like money wise, you mean high volume.
High
rollers.
volume, just do it, like gambling, lottery, so you blur the lines of, being an investor versus a risk taker, you're just.
That's it. This is a dangerous slope.
Oh yeah.
Because you can get yourself caught into, some situations that you can't get out of, or if you get out of them, you're taking, a big hit to the face.
To me, there's, you're chasing the big payday.
Mm-hmm.
You're.
Is that greedy?
I don't know if it's greedy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it's trying to take the short way out.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like you're swinging for the fences.
And that's not all bad. I mean,
No.
I think there's a fine line of being that with every single decision that you make. And, maybe in this collector, I don't know. There has to be something in the middle between this collector and speculator.
Which is just your regular investor.
It's your regular investor, which I guess we're about to get into it. But speculator, high risk, high return. We wrote internet boom late 90s. Is that when you think these folks are born?
No, just that's when people were speculating because you're buying all these internet companies with zero assets.
Yeah.
No really book value. You're just betting on the fact that it's going to keep going up. I would argue some stuff that's going on in like a Nashville because it's so close to us, and for a lot of people listening, when I go up there, I've spoken a couple of times at the musicians that invest in real estate, which is quite an interesting group. But a lot of those guys are buying on speculation
up there.
Yes. So you buying a house for $200,000 that rents for $1,200. You and I know those numbers don't work.
Mm-mm.
They don't cash flow. So they're saying, all right, well, I'll go $200 negative a month, hoping that that's worth $250, right? And in 2 years. So to me, that's speculating.
Well, you're hoping and wishing.
You're hoping, right? I mean, I almost got pulled into being a speculator. I guess right when I first started. The condos down in Florida.
Yep.
And so we went down there and I did a tour, and I knew some people had already done it. So where you'd actually put a contract on a condo, and 6 months in, it's now worth $40,000 more than what you put your contract under. You had to put a deposit down, but basically you'd sell your contract to the next guy. It's kind of like a pyramid.
That sounds like it.
And so luckily, blissfully, however you want to say that, my gut said, this is too fast money. And so I walked away. I was like, I can't do this.
And when the market
guess
crashed,
what happened? I would have been stuck with a condo that I couldn't afford, or stuck with a condo that was going way down and half the value really quickly.
And that was that right timing too, because the market hit in 8 and 9.
Yep. So this is probably 03, 04, when I was looking at doing it, and my gut said, and there was a lot of people that made a lot of money doing that, so they were speculating. And so that's what I'm saying. There was a high risk and high return, and a lot of that was based on the timing that was going on down there. So, I mean, if you're, I always joke about being in a pyramid scheme, and I don't know if you ever heard of those. Where
multi-level marketing.
Multi-level marketing. You're great as long as you're not the one on the bottom.
Right. I think those are if you're one of the top 5 people in it, then I think you're fine.
You're fine. But if anybody below that, I mean, that pyramid gets so big so fast.
Yeah.
I remember, and again, another example that I could give personally, I was in high school or college, going into college, and we had friends, parents that were giving $1,500, and you get 8 of you, and you give somebody, I say 8 of us gave you $1,500.
Yeah.
So now you made $12,000.
Mm-hmm.
I had to go find 8 people to give me $1,500. right?
And
so
it just keeps going.
It keeps going. So anyway, all that to say, I got the $1,500 out of my bank account and went to this house, got to the front door, and my gut just
Tightened up.
And I literally turned around, got in my car, and went and hung out with my buddies. And 3 hours later, the feds busted the whole groups. Everybody was busted. Everything was shut down. The pyramid ended that day for everybody in South Carolina.
The room that you were going to go in was busted by the feds 3 hours later?
Yeah.
Oh, talking about avoiding a catastrophe.
Yeah.
Whew, what a decision.
Again, it was trying to get, oh man, I could have $12,000 in my account, and they were selling it as friends helping friends. It wasn't a pyramid, but if you start doing the math and playing that out and how many people that quickly you have to find and get that thing to keep rolling, so anyway, that's what speculation is. I mean, and going to casinos, I mean, how many trips you've been on, our guys talk about it now. We have a lot of, for whatever reason, Vegas is a good spot for conferences.
Yep.
And they talk about how many people go, and they have guys that are there all night long just gambling away and hoping to, just they're going to stay that just a little bit longer to win that big jackpot. So, that
gets you sucked in.
Yeah, I mean, that to me, you're not trying to put in the hard work.
No.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you're trying to hit that big score with not a whole lot of effort into it.
Is that phrase right? Fast nickel, slow dime versus slow dime.
Yeah.
Is that how you say that?
Yeah.
You want a fast nickel versus a slow dime.
Mm-hmm.
That's to me, that's a speculator.